I was really hoping that the first time I mentioned existentialism on this channel, I could accompany it with a dance. I can't do that because various events have intervened, and I'm going to have to put this on now. I noticed the last time I talked about religion on this channel, people seem to think that I was advocating a position I actually believe in. That's not what I'm doing. I'm presenting ideas that I'm hoping will reveal the openness of the possibilities of thinking about religion, which people don't seem to be willing to explore or perhaps even aware of them. So today I'm going to talk about existentialist theology. The most distinctive thing about human life, according to existentialists, is that we are aware of our existence and we ask questions about it. I'm a little dubious about that because I think maybe that's just what philosophers do. We find it hard to be detached about our existence and its end, in other words, our death. We will very likely care about our death, and we can reason about it in the sense that we'll say, if we're there, then it's not there, and if it's there, then we're not there. But that's a reasoned approach which we don't really own. We don't feel that emotionally. We can go with that, but it doesn't really help. We find it hard to be detached about our existence and its end, and we also find it rather too easy, suspiciously easy, to be detached about things. So we will tend to view ourselves as things, and we're not things really. So existentialism is a protest against that view and a demand to take personal experience seriously. It's at base an attitude towards human life which emphasises immediate real life experience along with the encounter with other people. In other words, you can look at the world as a sort of Cartesian coordinate with objects in it and so forth. But in that world, there's an origin, maybe, but that origin is not us. We are just there looking at a piece of graph paper and seeing the Seiende, the beings that are out there in the world, and putting ourselves somewhere in that, but we're not centred in that way. And there is an alternative approach to that. And the thing about scientific realism is that I don't think it recognises that fact. It doesn't own emotionally the significance of what it's talking about. It's all out there somewhere, and there's an attempt at objectivity, which I think is impossible and not desirable. What we need to do in existentialism is encounter our others, recognise our immediate real life experience, and understand our finitude. And Kierkegaard did this. He stressed the importance of individual decision making and an awareness of the limits of human existence. The great Martin Heidegger, one of my heroes I suppose, in this deeply inferior English translation of his work, mentions in the original German, and there's nothing wrong with the translator, by the way, I'm not slagging the translator off, I'm just saying that you shouldn't translate Heidegger into English, you should read it in German, made a distinction between inauthentic and authentic existence. He reckoned that the big problem with Western philosophy was that we asked the Seinsfrage, the meaning of being, in the wrong way. In other words, the question of the meaning of being is interpreted in terms of objects in the world, and we mistake ourselves for those objects in the world rather than recognising that we are being. And we are the ground of all existence, and we can't step outside ourselves. Now I'm going to move on to Bultmann, who is an existentialist theologian. The Gospels, according to Bultmann, reveal the Christ of faith, i.e. the Christ myth developed by the early church, not the historical Jesus. The historical Jesus is not really relevant. He contrasts Historie, notice the Latin word there, with Geschichte, notice the German word. German word for history versus the Latin word for history. Heidegger is not a fan of Latin, because he feels it's opaque, and it's similar to the contrast that we have in English between the language of the Norman overlords, which is French, and the English words that we have in our own vocabulary. We don't own that in the same way, and again we don't own, German is much more owned by its speakers than many English words are, and so there's an inauthenticity in the use of Latin words, and that Historia is objective factual accounts of historical events, which is not really the point as far as the Gospels are concerned, according to Bultmann. Geschichte is the meaning that people choose to give those events. Bultmann maintained that the New Testament needed to be demythologized. We needed to recognise what was expressed in there in the pre-scientific age and strip that away. And then we will be able to recognise its significance and interpret it personally. And biblical hermeneutics, that is, the interpretation of the Bible, is an inquiry into the reality of being. So you've got this book, and you've got, this is the Bible, and you've got this book, and basically these are about the same thing. This expresses it in terms of sin and salvation and so forth, and this expresses it in terms of Gerede, das Mann, Dasein, Seiende, and so forth. But they are essentially about the same subject. Bultmann also emphasized the importance of Kerygma, the essential message and proclamation of the New Testament regarding the significance of Jesus Christ. Now that's Jesus Christ as in the Christ myth, that's not Jesus the historical figure. The New Testament recognises inauthentic existence in the form of sin. In other words, an attempt at self-sufficiency, which it labels in the English translations as sin. Authentic existence is the abandonment of security and self-sufficiency. We recognise that we cannot do what we need to do on our own. We need the help of others, and in those others we may think that the others are a manifestation of God, made in God's image, or we may see the other as God, onto which we depend. In salvation we abandon faith in this transitory world and we embrace our finitude and the inevitability of our death. That is what Christianity is, according to Bultmann, about. Now obviously I can't talk about Christian existentialism in very much depth in a 8-minute video, which is probably what this is going to turn out to be. So this is just a basic fact. Now please remember, I'm not advocating this. What I'm saying is, this is the kind of thing that you get in theology in the 20th century and the 21st century. The kind of discussion that occurs between fundamentalist Christians and the new atheism is nothing about this. It doesn't ever address these issues of Sein, Seiende, the Seinsfrage, and any of that. It's just totally superficial and floats on the top. Never talks about the other dimensions. And yes, it's possible to be an atheist and a theologian. That's not a problem at all. I'm personally not an atheist, but what I'm trying to say is there's a lot more depth to it than you might think there is. And you yourself, if you are an atheist, you have a hermeneutic of the Bible. You have a hermeneutic of suspicion. I have a hermeneutic of faith. But that's, also a hermeneutic, as is yours. So your version of the Bible is your own version of the Bible. You take your own personality to that, and I take my own personality to that, and that's what happens. So if you like this video, please rate, comment, share, and subscribe. If you dislike it, please tell me why so I can improve, and I'll see you tomorrow.